Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today I am here with Katie Davis, who has an incredible story about pivoting her career and becoming a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, and then having so many opportunities and impact unfold from there. And I think her story is really relatable, but also super inspirational for any coach, any mom, anybody who's feeling a sense that they are called for something more or something different. And I'm really excited to talk to you today. Katie, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here as well.
All right. So let's dig into a little bit of your background. So tell me about yourself and like how you've spent most of your life up until recently.
Yeah. Well, like how much time do we have? Because
you can give me like the highlight reel version.
Okay. Well, I'll kind of start from the beginning and see how fast I can go.
Cool.
So basically I had my first daughter, Clara, when, 2016. I had been doing, I was recreational CrossFitter for about a year at that point. Kept doing my, workouts through my pregnancy. It was very, general, keep doing what you've always done, listen to your body, no real clear context on how or why to change things. And then, postpartum, like a lot of us experience that, just wanting to get back to and, just jump back in. And I had no idea. So I did jump back in, and probably, 9 weeks postpartum is when I felt this bulge in my vagina. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? So I didn't even really get a diagnosis of bladder prolapse until 2.5 years later when I changed providers. But I was doing 70-pound overhead squats, and it wasn't probably that specific movement, but it was just that combination of 3.5 hours of trying to push, and then genetics. My mom had prolapse, so I knew what it was, and I was terrified of getting it, but I still obviously didn't know how to quote unquote prevent, if that's even a thing. But anyways, so then spent a year and a half just trying to figure out my body. I wasn't willing to accept how I felt or not be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So somewhere along the way I found you on Instagram, and then it was you had this course and that course and whatever, and I just was trying to search and find my way. So I got to the point where I was pretty much asymptomatic with my prolapse, and then by 2.5 years postpartum with Clara, I was okay, I'm ready to get pregnant again. And so in 2019, that's when I took the coach's certification during my second pregnancy with Lila. So it started off as, being the coach that I needed. I thought, hey, it'd be cool if I could help some of the other girls in the gym that I went to, the CrossFit gym. So completely different approach from my first to second pregnancy with exercise. And then especially postpartum, rebuilding. Yeah, at that time, it was kind of just I have this information, if anybody around me needed help, that's cool. But then it just I kept being pulled more, to help people. And I have been a hairstylist, 18 years I'll circle back to that. But I was basically, I was doing hair, and then I started I was working with pregnant and earlier postpartum people. I started one class where I was using the CrossFit gym that I was a member at, using their equipment, just kind of renting their space. And so niche down with that group of people. And then that was in 2020 is when I kind of started that. Trying to think. From there, I think it was, 2022 is when we had the first coaches live seminar out in Boise, and I came to that, and that gave me, the kick in the ass that I needed to do more, because I kept being told to do more. And I think at one point you had told me, I think I did that business accelerator. I don't remember if it was in that or what, but you were like, well, you just, take away a little bit from the hair and add a little bit to coaching. And so that's what I just kept doing. And so after the coaches seminar, I was like, okay, I kind of thought it'd be cool to have my own space. So my friend, she owned a cleaning business in town where she let me, rent her little detached garage. It was 800 square feet. And I knew when I moved into my own space that I wanted to broaden my reach of age range, because, and I remember at the coaches live too, I had said something to you about, I don't know, I always really felt held back by the pregnancy and postpartum title, because I knew when I took the course, I could see how, those main principles literally can help anybody, right? So even when I was coaching CrossFit, the men, those same things can apply to anyone. And so I always felt held back by that. And so I just tried to trust my instincts. And so when I was moving into my own space, I was like, okay, I'm going to broaden my reach. So that was March of 2023. I started a functional movement class for women over 60. And then, let's see, where are we at? June. So just in May, I moved to a bigger space. So I'm in my brand new space just a little over a year later. And basically I have a younger girls class too, which is basically my kids. They're 5 and 8 almost. And then some of their friends, obviously we don't sit there and talk about the pelvic floor, but we do some breathing and then, just make stuff fun. And then, so that group's kind of 8 years. And then I range all the way then up to 78. I did have somebody who was 81. She's quit right now, but my 78-year-old, she's we do personal training. She is a cancer survivor. She, lost a lot of weight. She wants to gain strength. And so it's just yes, this wide range, and I love it. And in January, is when I quit my hairstylist job of 18 years to go full time doing this. So that was my condensed version.
Well, it's a big deal. And there's so many things, so many topics within this whole story that we can pull from. So I'm just going to kind of chip through, because I think you gave a great overview of what the last few years of your life have looked like. But I think there's some really key points here is you became a mom, you were an athlete before that, you were a career hairstylist, you were on your feet all the time anyway. You're obviously very good at engaging with people. Being a hairstylist, you're talking all the time, you're learning a lot about people, you're pregnant, and then you have this baby and you realize, oh my God, I have prolapse. And then you're seeking out, what do I do about this? You find the P&PA certification. And so during that season of life, how did you start to adjust some of your training with what you were learning? I know you made a lot of awesome connections with coaches. What was that particular season of life like when you were working a lot, you had young babies, you were still trying to train, and you had this diagnosis?
Yeah, that was, man, the first like few days, like after I felt that like bulge, I was like, oh my God, like what did I just do to my body just to like lift some stupid weights, you know? But I mean, I love lifting those stupid weights. So I was like, I'm not gonna not do that. So it was like a dark time right at the beginning. But like I said, I wasn't willing to accept how I felt. So I just was like desperately searching. Like I found you, I found I can't think of her name now, the one that like talked about piston breathing.
Oh, Julie.
Julia. I found her randomly. It was just like, yeah, desperately searching. I mean, I had a provider that like gave me like a worksheet, like do these exercises. I mean, I found a couple pelvic floor physical therapists, which I didn't know was a thing until, I needed to know. And even that was kind of sketchy. Like I still don't feel like I have found one that's like really great to refer people to.
Remind me, where are you based out of? Where is your gym? And
so I'm in central Illinois.
Okay.
So like where my business is, it's like a town of 15,000. So we don't have like any pelvic floor PTs here,
Right.
but we're kind of a central location where, there's bigger towns around us. So it'd be nice to find somebody.
Oh, that's good.
But my training was just like one step forward, two steps back is what it felt like. Trying to navigate what movements caused me symptoms until, like chipping away until I found, or I didn't, well, I was basically like symptom free for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I think it just shows, you were in a really tough season of life, but then you were pretty relentless, even without a whole lot of like local support, with trying to find ways to navigate your own body and your training and heal, and then become educated on this. So then you start to almost like you can't unsee it after you've experienced like what can happen during pregnancy or what your body experiences postpartum, or even just like outside of the core and pelvic health symptoms, just the overall like evolution of what happens to you as a woman, as an athlete during those seasons. And I loved, the conversations we've had where you've just shared about wanting to become who you needed so then you can support other women in the gym that you were at, the CrossFit gym that you were at. And now that has led to you starting your own business and dabbling more and more there. And I just feel like over the years, you've just continually like progressively overloaded what your looks like, what your impact looks like a little bit at a time, one client at a time, a couple clients at a time. Okay, I'm going to try to rent space here. Okay, I'm going to get this other place that I can rent space at. Okay, now I'm opening my own gym. And slowly, I feel like the more you can help others, the more you also heal your own self. And it seems like that has been a huge part of your story.
Yes. Well, and I think that advice came from you. I don't know if it was, the business accelerator or the coach's life, but you were like, your business is just like your training, right? So just chipping away.
Yeah. But what makes you different is you actually like were, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this unfolded really quickly. But at the time, I feel like it was just one client and then one class. Well, we'll see if this class takes off. We'll see if it works. Like, we'll see what to do. And so for coaches listening, saying like, yes, for whatever reason, they feel called to do this kind of work. Maybe they have another career. Maybe they're a stay-at-home mom. Maybe they've been a coach for a long time, but they do feel maybe a little bit limited with like, well, pregnancy and postpartum. But I think it's always a great starting point to start with something that's like niche, right? Like where you can really dial in, I help this population. And if you're a mom, it makes it even easier because that is sort of the community of people that you're naturally around a bit more. So it makes that marketing and that exposure a little bit more intuitive. But from there, like, tell me how, you went from, I took the coach certification and I want to like get a couple clients, or I want to maybe start a class. Like, how did you start to build it when it was really small scale still, and when you're just dabbling?
Yeah. So I think I just kind of like through social media, like kind of started and like maybe put it out there. And then like I had maybe a couple like one-on-one people who reached out to me. I'm trying to think. There was one person that reached out and like I wasn't ready. Like I didn't have like a waiver or whatever. And I was like, oh crap. Like, what do I have to do? So I just like, I just had to do it because obviously I wasn't going to say no to someone. I have a really hard time saying no to people, especially when they're like ready to start.
Right.
But so I think it was just like a couple people. And then honestly, like one of them had never been pregnant. Like she was a runner, like leaking with running. So then I don't know. I just talked to my friends that own the CrossFit gym and was like, when could I fit a class in within those class times that are, every day? And then just kind of started with that, pregnancy and earlier postpartum group and did that for a couple years while I was still doing hair, also coaching CrossFit. So that was kind of, I guess, where I started and just, added a little bit as I went.
Yeah. And one thing I really like that you said, we've touched on a bit here is, feeling limited initially with pregnancy and postpartum, and it can be really intimidating, I think, for coaches. You're like, well, I want to be able to like coach kids still, or maybe coach men, or just coach people that don't want kids, haven't had kids, whatever that situation might be. And I think a misconception that we have is like, yes, I have a certification called Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism, because this is often the times where you have to learn a lot about your body as a woman, and coaches have to learn how to support their female clients. So it's almost an easy time. Like I call it like the gateway drug, like pregnancy and postpartum, like that gets the attention of like, ooh, maybe I need to know a little bit more about the female body. But once you've gone through the certification, you start to see like, actually, this is stuff that every woman should know about her body, that every mother can be teaching their daughter about her body as she gets older and she's participating in sports. This is something I can help my mom with. This is something I can help my sister who's navigating perimenopause or menopause or whatever. You start to see how what I've said for years is like, this is a lifetime of athleticism. Like it's not just this particular season of pregnancy and postpartum. It's how it influences everything to come. But this is just the first time people kind of start to pay attention or take interest, both from a coaching perspective and from the female athlete perspective.
Yeah.
So with that, with my like rant and TED talk there, how did you start to see that you could take some of the concepts that were taught in that course and expand it beyond your pregnant and postpartum population?
Honestly, I don't know, because I felt that way like from when I first took the certification, and maybe it was because I like was doing CrossFit and then I was coaching CrossFit too. So I always like saw a wide range of like athletes and abilities. And even when I was coaching CrossFit, like some of the men, I would think in my head, like, ooh, like I bet if like he changed his position a little bit or whatever, like that would feel better on his back. But I always was kind of like, I felt kind of held back, like maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know why, because now I absolutely would. But I think it was just, getting in like coaching hours with a wide spectrum of people. So I kind of lost track of what I was, where I was going with that.
Well, I think ultimately, first you didn't want to be like so specific, but then you started to see how everything that we taught there could actually be applied to all different bodies. And I think it's great. Like with coaching, so much of it is getting reps with different people who respond differently, who have different needs, different goals, different like athletic backgrounds or no athletic background. And then just being able to get really creative and think and cue and understand on the spot. And that is just not always taught to coaches, whether they went to school for kinesiology or whatever, or in our different certifications. Like there's an art to being able to like read the room, but also like read the person and know what they need. And that's just so much of the concepts kind of in a really holistic way that are taught through that certification. So I try to tell people like, yes, it is specific to this population, but it's also incredibly transferable to everyone else you're going to interact with. And like, you should be getting coaching reps with people of all different backgrounds, of all different sports and genders and whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So then you decided to start this business. You were coaching more and doing hair less. So what was that like when you were realizing maybe you got the idea of like, is there a pivot on my horizon?
Yes. It was crazy because I probably did that for, well, at least 2 to 3 years. So I went down to like 2 days a week at the salon, which was 50 minutes from our house. And then I was coaching CrossFit on Wednesdays, and then I was having like my pregnant and postpartum class. I think that was on Mondays and Wednesdays. So it was like just crazy. It was crazy busy, but it wasn't worth like, I mean, not that making money is like everything, but like I was working too hard and not making enough money in one certain place, I guess.
Yeah.
And not that that wasn't ever like my main goal, but it was just like I was going too many different places and it was like, this is crazy. And so, yeah, I did that for a while. And then my mom got sick back in August. And then that kind of gave me, because she had helped so much with my kids, that then like I needed to be around for them more. And so I kind of cut out then like coaching CrossFit. That was probably like October. And then I decided in January, that's when I was going to like go all in on my business and stop doing hair. When I went in to like tell my manager at the salon, like all I did was just like sob. I couldn't even like get words out because it was like, I had been there for 18 years. So I was like, holy shit, like, what am I doing? But that's kind of how it happened.
No, absolutely. And when you transitioned to your own space, tell me like what that process was like for finding the right space. And I think it's also really important to note that you have opened a brick and mortar gym that is like, even though you help a lot of people, it is still kind of specific to helping a lot of women and probably mothers, or maybe people in perimenopause or menopause. But you've done that in a really small community. That's not like you're not in like a major community where you have this volume of people that are coming through. So I think it's really insightful to hear about what that process has been like, opening a gym that is pretty specific in a very small community. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I like I said, I started in an 800 square foot garage just a little over a year ago. And I had just started my, like the functional movement class for women over 60. And then I did a couple like 6-week series too, like, after the seminar. I did a couple 6-week series. So that kind of got things moving a lot, and added like some other class times, like as my schedule would allow. And then, I had to get really creative in like such a small space, which was interesting. And then, I had minimal equipment too, but it was like, well, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with minimal equipment, And so, yeah, I just started, honestly, like pretty much like all of my clients are referrals.
Yeah.
And, as a hairstylist, like that was always obviously part of the job too, like giving out referral cards, whatever, like, and I think that's the best way, because then you get people that like value, who you are and what you're doing, and the service that you provide. And so, yeah, it's just been like word of mouth. Like I'm really like terrible at social media. I just, kind of like throw crap out there every once in a while or throw something on my story, but it's not like I've actively tried really hard to get new clients. Like they just kind of come steadily, which is good, because then, I don't feel like overwhelmed either, where it's like I can't keep up. I was starting to feel that way when I was, working like all the jobs. And it's like, this is just not sustainable anymore. And so that's when I, decided to get my own space and stop doing hair. And then, I was so limited on my space too, with just being in like a garage, that then I had to start capping my class sizes, which I would cap at like 8, which even 8 people in there was tight. Like it was crazy. But I've been really lucky. I have a woman in one of my classes. She does not have kids, has never had children, but she did one of my 6-week series, and she's been coming for like over a year now. But she is the CEO of LEAD in our community, which is Lincoln, which is the town, Lincoln Economic Advancement and Development. And so she helps like small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so she's like been amazing, because I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like I can train people, as a hairstylist, I worked for the company. It wasn't like I was doing all the business stuff myself. But so she has helped me a lot. And so like our community is really lucky to have her. So we're in a town of 15,000. And yeah, I just, friends just keep telling their friends pretty much. So.
Well, and I think it's cool when you can, there's progressive overload elements in all of this, right? Where you've taken a lot of the skill set from being a hairstylist for so long and have been able to transfer that skill set over into a coaching business and now running a brick and mortar business. And I think that people sometimes feel like, well, I don't have experience, or I don't have enough experience doing X, Y, or Z, or I don't know how to do that. But it's like, you have a lot of fundamentals. Like people have certain fundamentals that are super transferable into pivoting, whether it's just pivoting part-time, being a stay-at-home mom and saying, I'm going to coach twice a week. I know I can coach, I can commit like 2 to 3 hours a week to coaching. And like, that can be enough during this season of life. And like, you can always build off of that. Some people don't want to have a brick and mortar, but for you, you're able to keep kind of building off of that as the demand grew. And it's funny, I think a lot of people are afraid they're not going to have enough clients. And I haven't heard you say that once. You're like, I'm getting the right amount. I'm getting it from the people I want to get referrals from. And you obviously have enough where you are able to have a gym. Like you were able to fund a gym. And that's a really big deal. And I want you to know that's like a very big deal. And it's a significant accomplishment from where you started, or maybe more so like even how it started for you and now where it's ended up. It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I feel like you're about to cry.
Yeah, that's me. I cry very easily.
I know. I remember that Coach Course Live too, but it was like, I think even when you came to that event, which even that was an act of practicing brave, like being able to leave your family, come to that event, which for those of you who don't know, for anybody who's gone through my coaching certification program once a year, I have an in-person event here in Boise, Idaho, where we call it the Coach Course Live, where different certified P&PA coaches come in, and it is like a coaching intensive, but also business intensive weekend where we kind of like talk things out. You get really well networked with other coaches, me and my team, and we in some ways kind of pick on you, but out of love, right? Where like you're coming to me with some of your questions or your concerns, and we were able to kind of knock out like that imposter syndrome, or, just give you some clarity on what is your next right step. And I think so many of us overthink, or don't feel like we're ready, or don't feel qualified, or there's a lot of different like life barriers, right? And so being able to be in an environment where you can vet that, talk it out, and then leave and feel like, okay, I know what I need to do. And since then, what year was that? 2022? Yeah, I think. Yeah, 2022. You have had a hell of a year and a half, my friend.
Yeah.
2 years, I guess, but like a year and a half of like starting the business or starting the brick and mortar.
Yes.
That's been a pretty wild ride. So I just remember you like being like, really overwhelmed with like not knowing that next right thing, but then like just trusting in your ability to figure it out. And that has served you very well.
Yeah. I've really tried to like trust my intuition more and just like say, like, screw it, just do it. Just do it. Like, yeah, we only get one chance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. I knew the tears were right there.
They seem to always be. Well, and my mom passed away in April.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you only get one chance.
Well, it's very apparent that she'd be so proud of the life that you're creating for your family. And I know she got to witness so much of that, especially in like the early stages, and seeing like what you were creating for you and your family. And like, it does, I think, give you like loss and grief, just gives you such perspective of, like you said, you only get one chance to practice brave and like bring a vision to life and to live a really rewarding like life, a really rewarding career, do something that like you're not just good at, but you care about, that you love, that like is serving others, but it's also serving you like intrinsically, it's serving you financially. It's like, it serves in so many ways. And a lot of people never get to unlock that part of themselves. And entrepreneurship is so beautiful because you do get to unlock so much of that. And I'm just so happy that you found that, and that I could play a small part in it, in being a little bit of a catalyst, and seeing like you take it and freaking run, girl. You took it and ran.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was small. It was big.
Well, it's fun for me. It's also part of like I said about you finding your thing. This is certainly my thing that, I love. And I just love seeing people who also light up and feel really rewarded by the work that they get to do, no matter how they take it and apply it, right? Like, you're applying it in a brick and mortar in a small town in Illinois. Like, I could have never dreamed of that. We're seeing people in other countries take it. We're seeing different physical therapists take it, and like, make it your own thing, make it your own baby, bring it to life and raise this work in the way that you have the God-given ability to. And it's been so cool to see how you've done that.
Thank you. Well, and I feel like a lot of people don't even like get one job that they're passionate about. And like, I've had two. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The cool thing is like, you can always have those two as well. Like, it's fun when you can find careers where, like, if you want to do hair on the side here or there and you miss that, feel called, you can always have a couple clients, as long as like your time and life allow for it. You can always coach and scale up or scale back. Like, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And it's awesome that you've been able to create that and find something just new. Like, this, I know, was not on your radar until you had what seemed like the biggest buzzkill of a diagnosis that you could have when you find out that you have prolapse. It feels like, oh my God, my life as I knew it is over. And you were able to take like what was a devastating, at the time anyway, like diagnosis, and say like, what can I do about it? And I think there's so much to be said for taking action and knowing like, it's not over. Even if it's different, it's not over. And you've created something very beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, where can people learn more about your gym? I know you said you don't post a lot on social media, but where can we see what you're up to in your gym, social media or website, et cetera?
Yeah, so it's all the same really for social media, Instagram, my email, but it's Clear, CLEAR, Grace, GRACE, strength. And that name came from like my children's, like the meaning of my children's names kind of mashed together.
I love it. I know they are oftentimes a catalyst for who we end up becoming and what we end up doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story on this podcast and for the work that you are doing for women in your community. I will just never take that for granted. And it's very impactful for me. And I know for so many people that you get to interact with, and inspiring to all the P&PA coaches or potential P&PA coaches that are listening. Like, your story is very relatable and very inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I know when I was like a new coach, I like hooked on to like Kate Johnson, and I was always like, you know, she was like a mentor. I was always asking her questions and like, you know, everything. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully in a couple of years, like I'll be that for a new coach too. So like, I'm always here to root on any new coaches.
I love that. Well, thank you for paying it forward like that.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.